Unless you're living under a rock, then by now you know about the monumental shakeup in UK politics where the British equivalent of Bernie Sanders, Jeremy Corbyn, showed the world that progressives truly are the antidote to right-wing extremist ideologies that poison the brains of people who are the victims of neoliberal economic policies. Jeremy Corbyn showed us that if you actually are an unapologetic progressive, you can be successful and you can prove everyone wrong who doubted you. Now, Bernie Sanders wrote an op-ed for the New York Times basically asking the Democratic Party to see the lesson that Jeremy Corbyn taught us. So he writes, in 2016, the Democratic Party lost the presidency to possibly the least popular candidate in American history. In recent years, Democrats have also lost the Senate and House to right-wing Republicans whose extremist agenda is far removed from where most Americans are politically. Republicans now control almost two-thirds of the governor's offices and have gained about 1,000 seats in state legislatures in the past 9 years. In 24 states, Democrats have almost no political influence at all. If these results are not a clear manifestation of a failed political strategy, I don't know what is. For the sake of our country and the world, the Democratic Party, in a very fundamental way, must change direction. It has got to open its doors wide to working people and young people. It must become less dependent on wealthy contributors, and it must make clear to the working families of this country that in these difficult times, it is prepared to stand up and fight for their rights. Without hesitation, it must take on powerful corporate interests that dominate the economic and political life of the country. There are lessons to be learned from the recent campaign in Britain. The Conservatives there called the snap election with the full expectation that they would win in a landslide. They didn't. Against all predictions, they lost 13 seats in Parliament, while Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party won 32. There is never one reason elections are won or lost, but there is widespread agreement that momentum shifted to Labour after it released a very progressive manifesto that generated much enthusiasm among young people and workers. One of the most interesting aspects of the election was the soaring turnout among voters 34 or younger. The British elections should be a lesson for the Democratic Party. We already have among the lowest voter turnout of any major country on earth. Democrats will not win if the 2018 midterm election turnout resembles the unbelievably low 36.7% of eligible voters who cast ballots in 2014. The Democrats must develop an agenda that speaks to the pain of tens of millions of families who are working longer hours for lower wages, and to the young people who, unless we turn the economy around, will have a lower standard of living than their parents. While Democrats should appeal to moderate Republicans who are disgusted with the Trump presidency, too many in our party cling to an overly cautious, centrist ideology. The party's main thrust must be to make politics relevant to those who have given up on democracy and bring millions of new voters into the political process. It must be prepared to take on the right-wing extremist ideology of the Koch brothers and the billionaire class and fight for an economy and a government that works for all, not just the 1%. This is a pivotal moment in American history. If the Democrats are prepared to rally grassroots America in every state and to stand up to the greed of the billionaire class, the party will stop losing elections, and it will create the kind of country the American people want and deserve. So I couldn't have said it better myself. I think that Jeremy Corbyn's success proves that Bernie Sanders would have won, because we are currently witnessing an anti-establishment wave, not just in the United States, but across the world. And also, another point in this article I wanted to bring up is that for a pretty good portion of the article, he gets into Donald Trump and his numerous policy failings and how he just doesn't represent the working class. And the point that I want to take away from that portion of the argument is that if Democrats focus less on Donald Trump's tweets and more on his policies, then they could be a lot more successful. But Democrats, they don't really have a truly alternative progressive vision to counter with. So all they do is focus on the controversies. And the same thing is true for Republicans. I mean, think about when Obama was in power. What did they scream about? Benghazi, 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 because Republican policies, they just aren't that popular. And they only win when Democratic voters stay home, because the part of the electorate that votes Republican, it's older voters mostly, and they come out to vote in every single election. So if turnout is high, Democrats win. If turnout is low, Republicans win. It's a simple fact. So, I mean, now we're seeing kind of the same thing that Republicans did. We're seeing Russia, 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 when we saw Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. And really, I mean, the American people are hurting. You have to focus on the policies. Donald Trump has given us more than enough to criticize him on. We can make, hour-long segments on just specific things that he did. I mean, within the first week he was elected, he signed an executive order to expedite construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. I mean, why aren't they talking about that? There are so many things that we can criticize Trump for, but they choose to avoid the policy and focus on the controversy almost exclusively. And it's something that is not going to be conducive to a Democratic sweep in 2018. But getting back to the British election, I'll just say this because I didn't make a video about this, although if you followed me on Twitter, you know that I was going crazy as I watched the results come in. Jeremy Corbyn is an inspiration to progressives around the world, and he should be really proud of the progress that he made. I mean, look at someone like J.K. Rowling. She said that she doesn't like Jeremy Corbyn because he's really bringing down the Labour Party, when he showed that actually Jeremy Corbyn is helping the Labour Party, because the Labour Party was riddled with centrists. I mean, think about some of the prime ministers that they had. Gordon Brown. I mean, come on, Tony Blair. It's the same thing that we really see. I mean, these centrist so-called leftists, and again, Labour is much more further to the left than Democrats are, but I mean, you see them moving more to the center and to the right, and that doesn't excite anyone. You don't encourage younger voters to vote for you when they desperately need someone to represent them. And there's this argument that, well, they don't get any representation and Congress doesn't care about them because they don't come out to vote. Right. Give them something to vote for, and they will come out and they'll vote for you. They just will. That's what we've seen with Obama, even though he betrayed us. But I mean, you have to energize the base. That's the lesson that Jeremy Corbyn taught us, and you have to offer us policies that will actually improve our lives. Another lesson that Jeremy Corbyn taught us. So if Democrats want to win, they should use the British election as an example and learn the lessons from it. You have to be progressive. You have to move to the left and be unapologetic in the progressive policies that you advocate for.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.